Welcome to the best sports betting podcast, where we'll talk about reviews, previews, tips and all things betting related. Brought to you by bestsportsbetting.co.za. Now, on to our hosts.
How's it, punters? Welcome back to the Best Sports Betting Podcast. We have an action-packed episode today. We had a pretty decent week out last time. We had a couple winners come in. I gave a couple betting tips and they didn't all crash and burn spectacularly, so that was a nice change. Simon, did you catch any of my tips last week? You can follow any of your own tips.
We actually did very well for a change. We had an outright winner with Wales, who beat Ireland outright. You could have actually beaten them by about 15 points, but they ended up beating them by 1 or 2. And then I also had a winner with Man City beating Spurs to 0 at 11-10. And then you also, although it wasn't maybe strictly a tip, but we were talking about backing Italy and how they're very much a first half team, and they had 18.5 points on the handicap against England, and that also came in the first half. So it was a pretty good tipping weekend all round. And
I have to be honest with that bet. After I spoke about it on the show, I did have a much more in-depth look into it, and I was like, ooh, okay, well, I'm not sure if this is a great place to actually take this bet, considering how England have been playing and how terrible the Italians have been. But they turned it around. I don't want to say they turned their rugby around, but they put in the kind of performance that I was expecting of them. They had some pride. They didn't just roll over. Yeah. And those are the kind of bets that I like to take. We spot a little bit of value there. So it's
absolutely
decent.
And that number just kept on getting bigger in England. It actually closed at about 40.
Madness.
So there were people still piling into England at minus 36.5, which I found quite
absolute madness. I think I bet one big handicap like that. Well, I bet a few of them before, but I've only ever had one come in. Usually I back the plus.
Yeah.
And, it's just it's too big. It's too big. But yeah, let's jump into the EPL. We had a pretty interesting week of matches. I mean, I've got a couple of highlights here. I had Arsenal beating Leeds 4-2. I think that was quite an interesting match. A big turnaround for Arsenal there. We had Everton going down 2-0 to Fulham, bit of an upset. United drawing, and then Leicester beating Liverpool 3-1. I think that's the biggest talking point, other than maybe City beating Spurs, which is another big talking point.
It just seems that Liverpool are just they're always the biggest talking point after the weekend for the wrong reasons, it seems, of late.
And that's true. It's true. It's not because we particularly like Liverpool. They're just a fascinating team to kind of watch them. I don't want to say crash and burn at the moment, but it's a bit of a train wreck.
I mean, I said I fancied Leicester at home last week, but I just couldn't pull the trigger with Vardy potentially being out. He actually ended up playing because he has been injured for quite a few weeks now, so he wasn't a definite injury concern, but he was, there was a possibility he wouldn't play. I wish I'd had the gall to take Leicester, because they cruised home 3-1 in the end. And I don't know if you saw the post-match interview with Klopp, but he actually admitted publicly that Liverpool's title defense is over, which is big words from a manager in February.
Respect to him, though. He's not playing the game. He's not beating around the bush. Everyone can see that, and he's just basically confirming that. I mean, if he wants to have these delusions of still being a contender, then let him have that. But everyone else sees something different. It's just Man City are too strong.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And what I think is quite clever with that is, I think there's a little bit of reverse psychology going on there. I think that he thinks that this is exactly what his team needs to hear. Maybe if he sort of just says that they're down and out and they got no chance of winning the league, that will be what his team needs to kind of spur into action. So, maybe he wants his players to prove him wrong.
Yeah, and we've got a couple interesting matches with Liverpool involved, where I will be having a bet. I'll be looking to fade them. But let's talk about some of the tennis that you've been following, the Australian Open. I have not been watching. I've been playing virtual tennis on Sportingbet, Simon. So.
Okay, well, there's been some interesting goings on at the Oz Open, actually, that doesn't involve actual tennis, which is quite fun to talk about. So let's talk about that briefly. Just to set the context for this. So, most tennis players are very particular about the way they do things on the court. playing good tennis is often about repeating the same habits, through your service motion and so on. And once you get something right, you want to try and repeat something the same way. And Nadal, of course, as most people, anyone who's really watched Nadal play will know, he's more particular than most players. He goes through this sort of strange routine every time he serves. He wipes his forehead on each side, and then he pulls his underwear out his bum, even though it's not really there. And then he serves with like a massive grunt. So on Friday, there was a female fan in the crowd who was clearly very, very drunk. I mean, she had totally overindulged. And she shouted at Rafa Nadal, "Hurry up, you OCD fuck." in the middle of his service motion. And it was quite funny because Nadal actually took it pretty well. He looked kind of like a bit confused, and then he just laughed. And then she flipped him the bird.
Wow.
and then she was ejected by the stewards. I mean, she literally had to be dragged out, kicking and
she
screaming.
should be. Australians.
Yeah. It was definitely not something that you see at tennis very often. But I think if there's one thing we can take away from that, maybe it's, don't drink tequila in the hot Melbourne sun, potentially.
Yeah. It's nice that they can have spectators at those events, though. I mean, what?
Well, not anymore. So that was the last day of crowds because there was a corona outbreak. And in fact, in the middle of Djokovic's match, it was the middle of the third set in his match against Taylor Fritz. They actually, because Victoria, the county of Victoria declared a lockdown, and all the fans had to leave in the middle of the match. So
that's ridiculous.
It's been an interesting one. It is. I guess the Tennis Association didn't know that the lockdown was coming. Otherwise, they maybe wouldn't have let the fans in the first place. But pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, I can understand that rules and regulations need to be followed, but it seems a little crazy to have everyone pack into the stadium and then spend like 2-3 hours watching some tennis and then head out. There's not going to be much difference between the exposure there. Maybe it's a little longer, but yeah. Exactly. Anyway, I'll leave that down to the medical professionals. All right, then let's jump onto some of the T20. South Africa not doing well again. It's been a pretty dismal tour for us, taking on Pakistan.
Gosh, yeah, it really has. South Africa won their second T20, which was on Saturday, and then lost the decider on Sunday. So Pakistan won the series 2-1. But, I mean, in the third test, honestly, we should have been beaten. I mean, if it wasn't for David Miller, we would have been absolutely hammered.
Yes.
We were 65 for 7 after 10 overs, and Miller was the only batsman who managed to hang around for any length of time. He scored 85. But in the end, Pakistan reached our total of 164 with 4 wickets in hand. So, yeah, a very disappointing end to a very poor Test and T20 series for the Proteas. And we're actually going to do it all over again on the 2nd of April against Pakistan. And that'll be 3 ODIs and 4 T20s. So I really hope the Proteas can find something before that, because the series was an abomination.
And you might as well mix it up at that point if you've taken such a hammering, bring in some young blood, some fresh blood, might as well at that point. But yeah, let's have a look at the football coming up, some soccer. We've got a cracking set of fixtures this week. We've got some Premier League, we've got some Europa League. I'm not going to touch on that, and we also got some Champions League. Let's start off with the Premier League. There's a couple fixtures that have really jumped out to me. I've got the Merseyside derby here. We've got Everton versus City as well. So double match week for Everton there, and we've got City as well with a double match week, as they're taking on Arsenal, which should be a cracker. Then United versus Newcastle. So those are the matches that I think there's some betting value in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Merseyside derby would probably take top spot there. I mean, and Liverpool, I mean, they're 5-10 to beat their Merseyside rivals, and they've earned just 2 points from their last 5 home matches out of a possible. Out of a possible 15. So, the one thing is, though, to say that they've got the better of Everton in this fixture is an understatement. I mean, Everton actually haven't beaten Liverpool at Anfield since 1999. So that's 22 years ago. But looking at this from a betting perspective, I like the draw at 72. Yeah. It's a big price. I mean, that's basically, normally draws are around somewhere between 3.3 and 3.6. I mean, it depends obviously on the odds on either side, but this is a hell of a lot bigger than that. So I like the draw at 7-2. I also like a Liverpool 1-0 win at around 6-1. So those are the two angles I would take into this game.
Yeah, I was looking at the match and just following their recent form. I mean, Everton are coming off a bad loss at home to Fulham. Pool coming off a loss to Leicester. At least they're playing at home. And I think the draw is the right call here. Personally, I think Pool will probably edge this one. I don't find there's much value. I'm not going to back Pool in the handicap. I'm not going to back the overs in this match either, because I think this one really could go either way. It could be a goal fest, like a 4-4, or it could be a really low scoring, two teams just trying to not save their season, but trying to get something out of the fixture. I like that 1-0 bet of yours.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a nice way to hedge, because I think a draw is very possible. Yeah, I think the bookmakers are undervaluing a draw. I mean, I don't think Liverpool should be such strong favourites, but at the same time, if a team's going to win this, I have a feeling it will be Liverpool. So I think a 1-0, long shot is a nice sort of semi-hedge of the bet on the draw.
Yeah, then we also have Arsenal taking on City, and I fancy City to win. Obviously depending on what happens with their match against Everton. It's going to be a quick turnaround for them. Unfortunately, they're playing tomorrow, and then I think they're playing again on Sunday. So it's it's a very short turnaround. I don't think they're going to put too much into the Everton. It's hard to say, to be honest. But I just fancy City to beat Arsenal. Arsenal have been all over the show. I don't want to say that their form has turned around against with their last win against Leeds. I mean, it's Leeds, so I'm not going to read too much into that. I think City beat them comfortably here.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on the match winner here. I do think City are rightful favourites. I think the odds look about right. But there is a bet that I prefer, which is both teams to score. And Man City's defence has been really, really good this season. But obviously Arsenal scored 4 goals last time out against Leeds. City have been vulnerable at times at the back. And I just think City are basically a shoo-in to get a goal at the Emirates. I mean, they've scored a goal in every single EPL match this season. And you would think that Arsenal will net at home as well. So I think 8-10 is actually quite generous odds on both teams to score here. So that would be my bet for this game.
Oh, just looking here, City to win and both teams to score is 3.2. So might have a little dabble on that one.
That's very nice, actually.
That's over at Sportingbet. So I'd also shop around to see if you can find a slightly better price. But I think that's going to be an interesting game. I think for me, that's probably going to be the highlight of the weekend at least. And then we have Manchester United taking on Newcastle. Trust me, Newcastle don't do well against United, especially when playing at Old Trafford. Here, I've got Manchester United on the handicap. I think they're going to win 2-0. I don't think Newcastle will get a goal. And I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for the Reds.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, Rob.
It's unfortunate. You're getting 1.78 on that handicap as well. So I've actually included a couple of my bets in an accumulator for this week, but I do have a Champions League one in there, which we'll just segue into now. Unless you have anything more that you want to talk about in this week's set of fixtures.
Let's head on to the Champions League, which is kicking off tonight with Barca, PSG, and Leipzig, Liverpool.
Yeah, not too much caught my interest. There's the Barcelona PSG game, which is the highlight of the card. You've got a couple other decent matches. I'm not too interested in the other ones. What I am interested in is in the Leipzig Liverpool game, and I fancy Leipzig here, to be honest. They've been playing pretty well at home. They've got a reasonable record against English opposition. They're not playing at home. Let me make that clear. They're playing in a neutral stadium, and I just feel that the price on Liverpool is just not good enough for me to back them. Also, Liverpool have that game coming up on the weekend against City. So I'm going to go with Leipzig double chance here, although I'm going to be including it in an accumulator rather than taking it as a single bet. Sorry, the match is actually taking place in Budapest in Hungary.
Yeah, I think when looking at this game, the question you kind of have to ask yourself is, as you mentioned, will Liverpool have one eye on the Merseyside derby on Saturday? And my guess, based on Klopp's comments, regarding the EPL title race, is that they're going to throw everything at this one. That said, I still can't back Liverpool as favourites here, away from home, even if it's at a neutral stadium. I not until they bulk up their defence. So I'm not jumping to get with Leipzig, but I also don't want to back Liverpool here. So it's definitely a no bet for me in this match.
Yeah, this is definitely more of a fade for me, and I think Liverpool, they're really going to have to turn things around. I think this will be a close game. Maybe a 0-0 something, 1-1 something like that. I think Liverpool will go into the second leg having to win that leg, and I think they'll win it pretty comfortably when they're playing at home. So that's some of the
Yeah.
the factors that I have taken into account here. And yeah, that's pretty much the only bet that I'm taking there. So I have included that in a treble. I've got Man City to beat Arsenal 1.55. I've got Manchester United on the -1 handicap at 1.78. And then I have Leipzig double chance at 1.6 against Liverpool. That's all adding up to about 4.5. So your $100 is going to return you around 450 Rand. Not a bad bet. I think I'll actually put that one through right now.
That's really nice. There's the one bet that I do fancy of the 4 matches this week is Sevilla to beat Dortmund. I mean, these teams couldn't be in more polar opposite form. Sevilla have lost just 2 of their last 20 games, while Dortmund have struggled domestically in the Bundesliga and actually currently sitting at 6th on the table, which is very new territory for them. So I think 13-10 on Sevilla is a very, very decent price, especially at home. So actually that would definitely be my best bet of the Champions League this week.
Keep that one in mind. This match seems to be priced pretty close. We've got Sevilla here at 2.25 and the draw 3.4 and Dortmund at 3. So pretty tight match. And I think I might follow you with that Sevilla bet. I'll see if I can add that to my little accumulator here and have a rebet with that one included. And so let's jump over to some of the tennis. We had a quick chat about what's been happening. Is there any value for you this week? Are you still happy with your kind of outrights and your how things have been going?
Not particularly. So both of my we didn't quite tip them in time anyway, but both of my outrights have been knocked out. Arina Sabalenka and Elise Mertens both went out yesterday, but they both did manage to reach the round of 16, so it wasn't terrible. I mean, they were both semi-long shots, so not the end of the world. But I did find a nice winner on the weekend with Djokovic. And I just thought this was really intriguing. I mean, Novak was complaining about an abdominal injury, a stomach injury during his match against Taylor Fritz on Friday, but it didn't seem too bad at all. He was kind of wincing a little bit, but it kind of felt to me that he wasn't playing very well, and he would kind of wince a bit when Taylor Fritz had a really good winner, and he was kind of like almost using it as an excuse.
Yes, and he does that. He does do that.
He does. He's got a big ego. He might not show it all the time. I don't really think he does. And he had 2 full days to recover. So I was confident that he wouldn't be in bad shape. And the bookmakers set his price at 5-10 for a straight win over Raonic. I mean, Raonic has never beaten him in about 30 attempts, and he would have been priced at about 1/5, so 0.2 in this match if he wasn't injured. So I actually took him on the -1.5 set handicap, so him to win by at least 2 sets at odds of 19-20, which came in really nicely. So that was a nice spot. But yeah, I think overall he's still the man to beat. But I think Nadal and Medvedev will definitely give him a run for his money when it comes to the crunch.
Oh well, thanks for those insights here, Simon. I have not been watching too much of it. I might watch the final. I'll see what time it's on. But me and Corona have just cut down the sports that I watch down to an absolute minimum. But yeah, so talking about sports, I've checked out some of the Sportingbet virtual sports over obviously on Sportingbet. They've got a nice selection of games. There's 7 of them. You've got horse racing. You've got instant tennis. You've got a few other types of things, cycling, bike racing, all of those. Have you played much virtual sports outside of Jika Sports, Simon? What are your thoughts on these virtual games?
I haven't really. Most of the virtual sports I played have actually been Jika Sports, but I have watched a video that you created, about these Sportingbet virtual sports, and they look really, really cool. I really like the look of the tennis, and I particularly like the idea that you can switch from screen to screen and actually watch 3 games at once. I think that's really cool. It's that really emulates a sort of live sport experience. If you were watching something like the Australian Open and you had multiple games happening at once, that's exactly what you would be able to do. So I think that's a very cool feature.
Yeah, the tennis is definitely a highlight. You can actually bet on the matches in play. And I remember years ago, I think it was Ladbrokes or Bet365 that had a virtual horse racing game where you could actually bet on the horse in play. Might have been Betway actually. And you could actually, start the virtual horse race and you could bet on the horses while they were running. It was very cool. And I wish we would see something like that over here. We haven't quite got there yet. But my biggest complaint with the new Sportingbet virtuals is what we discussed earlier, is it has a minimum bet of 12 Rand 50. Now that's pretty high. For someone like myself, it's not an issue. But if you want to go check these games out, you want to have a couple of bets before you get involved. And I mean, are you really going to want to spend, like $50 just trying to figure out how everything works? Or are you going to take that money and put it on actual, sports teams and actual soccer bets?
Yeah, I mean, when you compare it to a normal sports bet, which the minimum is R1, I mean, it's obviously 12.5 times higher, which is crazy. So that's obviously a logistical issue which they need to get around. As we were discussing earlier as well, it's probably because of the fact that the games do come from Europe and they're converting from euros to rands, but there's no excuse for that. They need to sort that out because they really are cutting out a big portion of the market by having such a high minimum bet.
And we saw it somewhere else, and I just can't recall exactly where it was, but it was another. I think it might have been some of the Evolution games that were brought out by another bookmaker. I stand to be corrected, but these games also came in and they also had a very high minimum bet. They have since adjusted that, and that's good to know. So hopefully Sportingbet see that video and adjust those prices, although it's unlikely. But yeah, guys, that wraps it up for today. We've got a cracker week of sport ahead of us. Lots to watch and lots to bet on, and hopefully we can find a few winners out there. Simon, thanks for joining me, and hopefully we'll have a profitable one.
Thanks, Rob.
Catch you in the next one, guys. Cheers.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to visit our site, Facebook and Twitter pages. Let's go make some money.